7 o'clock. This is a budget workshop. We also have some items on our agenda in terms of refunds that I'm asking the selectmen to approve tonight. So we'll move on to item number 2, which is refund of excess payments. Kathy?
I move to refund Jeffrey Jagoda $1,724.23.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. I think I heard you first.
I move to refund.
All in favor?
I'm so sorry.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Kathy?
Move to refund Rebecca White Stamelman $72.37.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I move to refund Nicholas L. and Mary B. Pina, P-I-N-I, $1,792.28.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I move to refund Wall and Hetty Jarvis $3,027.84.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I move to refund Kathleen W. Ackerman $27.89.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to refund Neil Carter $5.10.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to refund Michael Dapkus and Pamela Dapkus Wilcox $40.04.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Move to refund David A. and Teresa A. Ericetti $34.82.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to refund Honda Lease Trust $97.73.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I move to refund, I think this might be Irene H. Nichols. It says Nicholas. Is it Nicholas?
I don't know. I don't know. I would read it the way it is, I think,
Okay.
Kathy, and then if it's an error, we'll change it.
Okay. Irene H. Nicholas, $2,293.91.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I suspect that may be an error.
Okay.
But we'll need to verify that.
Okay.
Okay, that motion passes, but if you could just make a little question mark next to that before we submit the minutes, Laura, that may be an error. Okay, Kathy?
I move to refund Thomas and Patricia H. Nolan $24.10.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Move to refund Edward A. Organic Jr. and Magdalena A. Organic $11.68.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to refund Portland Cleaners and Tailors LLC $47.67.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to refund George F. Sheehan Jr. and Eileen D. Sheehan $10.
Second.
Seconded by Kitch. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to refund Carol D. Buckman $7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And we'll move on now on to number 3, which is the departmental budget workshop. And the Board of Education is up. I know that Marianne Road had a family commitment tonight. She cannot attend. I didn't know whether there was any opening statement from either the superintendent or Andrea acting as vice chairman tonight. Mr. Superintendent
If you want to move
of
right to
schools?
questions, that's fine, but I do have.
Sure, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, great. You want me to go to the
Yes,
podium?
would you please?
I would love to.
Great.
Thanks for inviting us here. I'm grateful to the board that a majority of members are here, and
Thank
as
you
you said,
for
our
coming.
board chair is out with a family commitment. So I wanted to make some, just several points about this budget, perhaps become more clear than I was at our budget hearing a couple of weeks ago. Again, we're driven by our teaching and learning priorities, which are not a document that we put up on the shelf. It is a living, breathing document. that we consult with, that we look at, that we problem solve around, that we build action plans around. So that, to me, is a priority and will remain a priority as long as I'm superintendent here in Portland. It is really the drive, the vehicle that moves us forward. And I would hate to see us lose the momentum that we have gained following those priorities. We are working on a vibrant 21st century education, and we need to continue to do that. This budget, as I said to the board when I presented it to them in early January, is a true reflection of our needs. We have no large contingency in, or rainy day fund in that budget. Now, in the past, we used to look to the health insurance line to have a little bit more flexibility because of its variability from year to year. And every year that we've cut further into that rainy day fund, if you will. And Tom will verify, and so won't my business manager verify, that insurance account now is exactly reflective of our needs and our personnel needs. There's no quote-unquote fluff in that line. So I wanted to make that clear. We sustained cuts to our current budget at the 11th hour, if you remember last year, when the governor made a surprising 11th hour cut to us. And so to begin with this year, we were sort of behind the 8 ball. If you remember, last year's budget that was approved by the town was less than 1%. Before I even brought this current proposal to the board, I had about a 5% budget. And I knew that was never a budget that would fly in front of you, in front of my board, in front of this town. So I immediately made some cuts, and those cuts were requests that the principals have made, or cuts to the priorities that we had already established and have tried to do little by little every year. For instance, I would like to see that we have one counselor at every single building. And right now at Brownstone, we do not have a full-time counselor. So that was one of those priorities that I said, you know what, I can't do it this year. I just can't bring such a large budget. So that was cut. But in previous years, I have added several positions, teaching positions, to create more equity from school to school, particularly between our 3 elementary schools. We added, and you may remember, reading teachers, a certified reading teacher, which is really a requirement for every elementary school. And we also added a certified library media specialist. In the past, we either shared that position from school to school, or we had a non-certified person in that position. That I don't want to see cut into. That priority has been established, and I want to remain with that. This budget contains no new teachers, and in fact, it has a reduction of paraprofessionals and a reduction of secretaries. We have attempted to consolidate those positions so that we could make room for those other priorities that we've created. Dr. Karsh and I continue to work on improving the instruction at every single level of our organization. And we have shifted our efforts to a great deal of professional development, which in the past we haven't been doing and we should be doing. And we have shifted to a one-to-one technology initiative. Both those initiatives are not necessarily falling on the backs of the taxpayers of Portland directly, because we've sought so many grants to help us with each of those 2 priorities. I don't want to lose our momentum in that area as well. This year is a really difficult year. The budget I'm living with right now, the less than 1%. We've brought in 4 additional students with high-cost special education needs. And when I talk about that, those needs usually are in excess of $100,000 per student, because they're extra services, they're sometimes outplaced services, and they very often require specialized transportation because the nature of a student's disabilities. I know you've heard superintendents say this before, but the reality is we've brought in 4. The good thing is, we've also brought back to the district 2 high-cost outplaced students who had previously been costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've brought them into district because we've been able to write a plan for them and obtain what's called a PPT approval when you come and a group of people come together, including the student's parents, and decide what kind of educational program a child needs. So we've been able to get parent approval and bring these kids back into our district, which is a really win-win for us. I might add that of those 4 high-cost new costs this current year, 3 of them came from out of our district. They moved into our district, which is an anomaly. But as an experienced superintendent and administrator in Connecticut, I know that that can happen from year to year. I want to say just a few words about open choice. Right now, we are very close to a 4% enrollment target that the board set for me 2 years ago. And that, we're at 3.98%, which just barely, we just barely missed that 4% target, which is really what we want to do, because the difference between a 4% target and a 3.98% target is actually $2,000 per student. So we want to get there next year. But with those funds, we are able to pay completely, eliminate the cost to Portland for all of our magnet school tuition. So all of those parents and children who choose to send their kids to either a Hartford magnet or a CREC magnet school, and we're required by law to pay that tuition, we being the town of Portland, we use the CREC open choice money to completely pay for that, and that does not appear in your budget. And that's a really good thing, or in our budget. We've saved with successful negotiations on our high deductible plan. 100% of the people that work for the Portland Board of Education, 183 people, now have a high deductible plan. As I said, we've reduced the number of secretaries and paraprofessionals.
Okay.
This budget does, you'll notice, have an increase in maintenance funding. And as I've explained, and actually as the board recognizes, we've always underfunded this, because what do we do when we have to cut the budget? We go to the maintenance area. And so we've pushed a little bit more back into this current proposal that's before you today. And then one of the pieces that I've said to the board repeatedly is that Portland, at $14,800 per pupil, is one of the lowest per pupil costs for districts that have similar economic backgrounds as we do, and is below the state average as well. And that's an important piece to consider. And then the absolute final thing that I want to say is, as superintendent of schools, I have tried to become vigilant around our capital needs. And thank goodness for the support of the Board of Education, for their support in creating a 5-year plan, and for us hitting those smaller projects year by year and making some significant gains, particularly at Brownstone. So we've replaced now 5 bathrooms. We've partially replaced windows. We've painted the entire interior of the building, and if you have been in that building recently or before the painting this year, you will know that it really did need it. But we have other projects ahead of us, and the Board of Ed has approved a 5-year capital plan. I know the town committee took a look at it. It didn't embrace all the ideas, but they are, one of the questions that the board asked me repeatedly, if you had to prioritize these projects, how would you do it? Or which of these projects are not as important? They really are all important. We have to invest, like we do in our own home, we have to invest in the building, in our buildings. We have health and safety issues that need to be addressed still. We have asbestos abatement. We have a parking area at Gildersleeve School that needs to be addressed at some point. We have numerous other projects. I'd love to see our window project completed. We have a track and field that I know that the board has been discussing for many, many years, that it too is a health and safety issue. So we have some large capital needs, and I know we're trying to all balance it, but I just wanted to make one comment about that tonight. So those are my introductory comments, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Philip. I'll open it up for questions. Ben, we'll start.
How many of the special needs children have aged out in the same time frame?
Have aged out?
You talked about 4 came in, and then
Yeah.
you brought 2 back. Did you have any age out in the same time frame?
We have 1 aging out this year, maybe 2. And remember, we don't determine that necessarily, nor does the child that reaches 17 or 18 years old, because we're required to provide beyond that until their 22nd birthday. So it's hard to answer that question, Ben, but my recollection, talking with our Director of Student Services, we have 1, maybe 2 that will age out this year. And that is due to some of the great work that she's done.
You mentioned our cost per pupil being so low. What do you attribute that to?
To the work that the Board of Education in this town has done, year
Yeah.
after year, and the superintendents have done to keep it that way. You know, I know that Sally, my predecessor, worked very hard, and I would like to think that I'm working as hard while trying to expand modestly on some priorities that I believe we needed to move forward on. Technology, reading teachers, school social workers, and library media specialists, and maintaining the great class sizes that we have. That is the greatest attribute of our school district, is the fact that our kids can be in these very reasonable classes.
What? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
On class sizes, so in the last meeting, Andrea mentioned the 3rd grade, and if I quote you incorrectly, speak up, the 3rd grade alone could handle that increase of approximately 18 to 20 children. So when you talk about the class sizes, and I believe the example she used, it would take it from approximately 18 to 21 in your new budget for that grade.
When those numbers were going around, everybody was sort of talking about a different application of those numbers.
And I'd like to
And-
thank you for not chiming, because you got it
Yeah.
right. You got stuck in the middle of the Jeff Mill asking the questions about taking things out of context.
Right.
I was very clear on what I thought, and at the end, I still stand behind what I said, and it was accurate. Cost per pupil is the entire budget divided by the number of children. That's very simple to figure out a cost per pupil. I understand with more people, the cost then goes down per pupil. These are all facts. People got caught up in.
Usually.
But I want to, well, true. I want to get into class sizes, number 1, and if you have a breakdown of the 3rd grade that you quoted, for example, because I would personally like to see, well, what are they? Are we knocking on 15 a class size in any of the grades? Are we potentially talking about through attrition?
So, I
eliminate.
thought that you might ask that question.
That's good.
So
You read my mind.
I do have some material that I give to the board every year. This was included in the budget, so I'm just gonna pass it down to you.
But I am glad we agree, Philip, that it is important in this little town. There is a value to the size of the class, and I agree with that. And that was my point from the beginning. And by adding just a few does make a difference, and I just wanted to be clear on that.
Can I just, so
You
you're
go ahead,
aware of
you
what
go
I
ahead.
Take the
said?
podium, Andrea. Thank you.
And I'm not trying to call you out. right?
No, but I want Philip to be aware of what I said so that he knows
Thank you.
when he's responding. So it was in the context, and some of the board was here, that we were talking about, the numbers, and everybody was throwing around numbers, to your point, Ben, where they said the potential of 18 to 20 students. And my comment was just in backing up what Dr. O'Reilly said, is that sometimes we have very reasonable, and sometimes I say great class sizes, and we're happy about that and proud of that. My only point was, in a worst-case scenario situation, did I use third grade? I don't know, maybe I did, that if, for example, they were all third grade students, and the average class was 18, and there were 6 sections of that, I was saying that conceivably, you could take, 3 kids per class and go to 21 students, and it'd still be somewhat reasonable. I was saying in a worst scenario, based on the context of what we were talking about that night related to the Elm Crest development, the potential of students for that. So I just wanted you to be aware of what I stood up here and said.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Class size is a moving target from September to June. Children are moving in and out of the district all the time. In fact, I think this is the January 1 enrollment, and if you looked at the March 1 enrollment, you would see that it's different than it is, than it's presented here. As we get up closer to the upper grades, there becomes a little bit more ability for us to bump up those class sizes a little bit. But the programs that Brownstone has embraced and that the board has supported over the years is to continue that low ratio of teacher per student. So we don't really follow that. We really have 5 or 6 teachers per grade level. And you can see that. And so sometimes what we do, like what we will do next year or in the coming year, we have a large section of 4th grade students. So a teacher will have to be moved to Brownstone because we have the 5th grade moving up to the 6th grade and 4th grade moving into the 5th grade, and so we want to have enough sections of teachers. Or we may want to take a look at our new incoming kindergarten. How many sections will that be? We also have a little bit of control over the open choice population. We, and I say we, the board and I, declare seats every year. And so we have the opportunity to close down a grade level if we see that the ratio is going up too much. So that's, and then sometimes when teachers move in and out because they're on maternity leave, we may fill a section, we may not fill a section. It will all depend on the budget process this year. So you've got some very good, you can see some very good, and I call very good high teens. Those are really good class sizes. And they're consistent at the middle school and the high school as well. In the high school, it may be a little bit different because you may have, it just may not be economical to run 2 sections of an honors class, but yet you have 25 or 29 kids that really want to take honors chemistry. And so you have to, that's where we might bump up a little bit higher for a class or a teacher-pupil ratio. So I don't know if that clarified anything.
I just wanted to ask,
Yeah.
so regarding open choice, you have about 52 that come in.
Yes.
Do you know how many children in the district leave the district? Whether Mercy, Xavier, magnet schools, charter schools, do you have a number on that?
I don't have it right in front of me, but yes, we could obtain that. But
I'm
you
just
could see
interested
that
in
in
that.
some sense, if you look at the class sizes at the high school and then compare them with the
Mm-hmm. Well,
class
that's what I'm
sizes
looking at.
beforehand, you can kind of,
Yeah.
you can see it,
Yeah.
what happens.
I
And
mean, you used to
it
lose
goes.
25%
Yeah,
sometimes,
I'm not sure it's that high, but,
Yeah, I'm just
and
wondering.
it differs from year to year,
Yeah.
and, believe it or not, football had an impact.
Mhm.
We felt that we had a few more kids that stayed in district
Right.
that could participate in our football, on our football co-op, so,
Yeah.
You mentioned the 4%. How many seats are you anticipating opening this year?
I opened 10 in kindergarten because we have incentives on top of incentives. And so if every 5 kindergarten kids, we get an additional $4,500. And we also receive from CREC a day, for every 5 kindergarten kids, we have a day of extra support for children. We have a teacher that comes in from CREC and works with all of our kids, not just our open choice children, our children that reside in Hartford. So there's definite incentives. Plus, the administrative team and I have obviously agreed that bringing in our students that reside in Hartford in the early years so that we can make them, can help them from the very beginning of their education and make their experience very positive and become part of our school community and then bring them forward. We make some exceptions, Ben, and occasionally I'll open up seats to accommodate a sibling of a younger child so that we have families together. And I did that this year too. And so I think that we approached 20 seats that we opened up this year when you move through the grades.
Do you see that the children are staying?
We have a higher attrition rate.
You do?
And we do, and we've determined this, and I have researched this one because of the distance.
Mhm.
That,
It's not good.
some of these, can you imagine a 5-year-old kid who was on a bus for an hour,
Or
sometimes
that,
longer?
yeah.
The transportation issue for our Hartford residents is the most challenging aspect.
Sure.
The research, the feedback that we receive from our Hartford parents is that they love the school, but the transportation piece is really very hard sometimes, for them as well.
Do we send buses there? I mean, I realize that I have to go on the bus very early.
Yes.
Do we send the buses
We do
there,
not.
or they have to?
There is one district, one CREC district, open choice district, that does its own transportation. It decided to do it as a school district. We don't.
We do
We
not.
use CREC transportation.
Fred, any questions? Ben and Kathy, any more? Ketch, any questions?
I have a question about the asbestos. What's the plan for the asbestos removal or remediation?
The AHERA regulations are such that every 3 years we have to do an assessment.
Mhm.
Every 6 months we have to do a mini assessment. Paul Bankston is certified to do all that, and that saves us a lot of money. Paul has saved us a tremendous amount of money by receiving the certification to do that. So if we can, it's mostly pitch our tiles that have the black mastic
Yep.
underneath them. They were made in the 60s, 50s, 40s. And so Paul has come up with a method that the state and the federal government has accepted to contain it temporarily. We always have to submit annually a plan. And every year we do. We say, we're gonna submit a plan to abate these 2 particular classrooms or these 5 classrooms. I don't know if you remember, but 2 years ago, we did 7 classrooms at Gildersleeve. So now we're pivoting to Valley View, and Paul has identified 2 that he has said to me, Philip, I don't know how much longer I can seal them, and we want to get those done. Those are top priority.
Okay. And they're in your 5-year plan?
They are.
They are, okay.
Yep.
The other question I had has to do with you said you cut back on secretarial
Yep.
and paras.
Yep.
And they've been replaced by?
Well, we replaced by, the secretaries, no.
Okay.
We've reconfigured how things are done, and we've reduced and given additional responsibilities for everybody. So we were really, in my belief, top-heavy with secretaries. It's probably not the most popular thing for me to say, but it is absolutely one of my observations when I became superintendent of schools. Actually, my predecessor had started the process, and I continued with it. So we consolidated, so that we had 2 secretaries per building, that the secretaries in the building did special education services as well, which we were hiring special people to do that. So,
So you consolidated the workload.
We consolidated the workload. We also, but then we replaced at Valley View some of the personnel who were on the secretarial contract, the library media assistant and the technology assistant,
Okay.
with a library media specialist, a certified teacher that handles both aspects of that job. So we had 2 people doing that job who were non-certified and part of the secretarial group. We eliminated those positions and brought in a certified library media specialist for Valley View. We did the same at Gildersleeve.
All right. One of the other questions I had, no, Kathy asked it about open choice. The reading specialist per building,
Hmm.
Talk to me about that.
Elementary school is about teaching kids how to read, and we need to have two pieces of, two primary responsibilities of a reading specialist in an elementary school, is to service those students with who are experiencing trouble learning to read. And, you know, there are lots of different reasons, and we're better now capable of identifying what those reasons are. Is it a comprehension issue? Is it a, you know, a phonemic awareness issue? Is it a sound letter match? Whatever. And so that's one part of the job. The other part of the job is that when these kids who aren't reading well go back into their regular classroom, the activity that they do with their classroom teacher has to match what the interventionist is doing. So the interventionist, the second part of her job, mostly her, we have 3 women, is to work with classroom teachers to ensure that their reading instruction is spot on and that they're providing research-based practices for the needy kids and all the kids in the classroom.
So for the needy kids, is the program more individualized?
It is when it's pulled out.
Okay.
So when they go back into the classroom, they could become part of a
All right.
group. And some of the methodology, you heard me reference the 21st century methodology. We're working on what we call the workshop methodology, where we're able to target kids at their particular levels. When I learned to read, I learned, you know, with the Bluebirds, and it was a larger group, and everybody read the same book, and that's not necessarily what's happening in our classrooms now. And we just received a rather large grant from the Gildersleeve Fund to help us pivot and move to that workshop methodology, because kids are actually reading more.
I think that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Follow up to that.
Fred?
Thought. Phil, as you were talking about the reading, kids had asked about reading.
Could you
Is
push
there
the
an
microphone
approach?
down, Ben? We actually have an extra one here. I think that one's Ben's and this one's Kathy's. Thank you.
Sight versus phonics as far as the reading. Is there, are there 2 tracks for that, at all?
There's no tracks anymore, Fred. We're doing it all.
You're doing.
But we're also able to identify those kids who may be strong sight readers, but have no clue what they're reading. And that's a comprehension issue. So we're able to determine, wow, their decoding skills are phenomenal, because they are visual learners. They can look at a word and know that TH says, and it just moves, and they can read fluently. They finish a passage and they think to themselves, what did I just read? So we can now identify that child. We can also identify the child who has real struggles with the letter sound match, the phonemic awareness. And so we have to then target that specific need. Now they may be great. You read them the story and they completely understand it and can answer any comprehension questions. So the pullout will be to focus on their strength, or to focus on their weakness by recognizing their strength, because you know, we want to build from what they can do. But when they go back to the classroom teachers, they will have both of that. They will have all of that.
So if Fred is a sight reader,
Yeah.
I come in first grade again,
Yeah.
I'm going to start over again.
Yeah.
Then I would, and that would be recognized by observation of the teachers, or, and then.
We have assessments that clearly identify what you can do in first grade.
Oh, that's very important. Thank you.
Yep.
Following up on that, is that still the Serbi program? Or is
So-
it straight from?
So Serbi is really what we do to the child to help them catch up. So that's the intervention program. And that also is something that is being redesigned in the Portland schools, and we're still working on that one.
How are you seeing the numbers from the children staying back? And I believe it was 2nd to 3rd grade or 1st to 2nd. And I believe when I was on the board, it hit a number of an average about 10, and we got it down to I think you were there, Andrea. I think we got down to around 2.
Krista's probably cringing right now because she knows exactly what I'm gonna say, but as a retainee myself, I completely understand that it is the most ineffective approach for helping students. And I probably haven't made a lot of friends here, but I am happy to know that my principal at Valley View School strongly supports that idea. When we wanna, the best time to retain a child is preschool. If a child needs 3 years in preschool, great. But once we start into that system, it's my belief that we keep them going. So in essence, I don't have the numbers, because unless it's a unique experience for a kid or a unique situation for a child, I typically do not allow for retentions.
Well, let me phrase it in a different way. I was one of those children that had difficulty reading.
Yep, as did I.
I'm severely dyslexic. Are you seeing these children, because you're right, if you don't teach them to read by 2nd or 3rd grade, you will probably lose them and they will struggle. There's a lot of studies to show that. Are you seeing that they are getting it? Whatever, and there's obviously, all the components to,
Right.
There's a lot of components to reading. It's not just, you
Right, right.
mentioned a few. Are you seeing a real change in these children?
The early signs, this is early in my tenure, and some of these interventions or some of these positions that we've added are just a year or 2 in. But I sat down with my principal at Valley View for her mid-year review, and she had a notebook of student data and put it out there. And by golly, that was quite impressive. And I know that Krista has seen similar things in other places in the district. So we have the assessments now to guide our instruction. Now we have to get better at using those assessments to focus our instruction so we can help our more needy kids. Now, there's lots of other interventions. Special education is another opportunity, and that is increasing, and we see that worldwide, countrywide.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything from board members tonight? I know you've already been through a series of workshops on these topics. And I want to thank so many of you for coming. I think you have a full house. I know that Mary Ann had a personal commitment and couldn't be here tonight. Send her our regards. Thank you. It's a good discussion. Tom Robinson, we're going to move on to the next section of our agenda. Thank you, Dr. O'Reilly. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right, so, there's a few
Thank you.
people asked for revisions, or,
Thank you.
starting with the Public Works Department on page 56.
So we'll all turn to page 56.
So this budget has a 2.2% increase to it, mostly made up of the salary components. There's 2 employees in this group. One of the things I will mention is in hazardous waste, you'll see that last year's was a little bit lower than the budget, but we did receive quite a large bill for this year that was related to last year that was held way late by the Lower River CROG. So that's, I think we're getting closer to that 9,000 number, and this year we're probably over that, but yeah, that continues. The hazardous waste continues to go up, and as well as Susan's been at meetings where the LCOG has said they also are going to increase the rates as well on that. So going forward on page 59, we go to the highway department. So here there's the budget areas have stayed relatively consistent. There's some increases and expected increases for salaries. The union contracts have not been completed, negotiated yet, so there's some estimates in there. And we did go up a slight amount here in line painting, as that continues to have more and more regulations as well as need. Slight increase in gas and diesel, and that was because at the time I did the budget, I had neither a contract on diesel or gas. We do have a contract on diesel, we do not have a contract on gas locked in yet. The diesel contract is favorable but slightly higher than last year. Any questions on the highway?
Traffic signals, $5,000. What traffic, I'm just curious which those are.
Traffic signals, that's the repair of the traffic signals that we have in town.
Which
Any of
ones
the
do we
ones that
own?
are ours, we can know the locations.
That's what I'm asking, if Susan.
We maintain, with the exception of the traffic signal at 66 in Main, we maintain all the signals on Main Street up to and including the Grove Street, and the state basically maintains everything on 66.
What's the reason for us maintaining Main Street's light?
We always have, since I've been here, we have, and long before that, I don't really know how that came about. I do know that we had approached DOT about taking over the signal at the Brownstone and Leeds.
They've indicated yes, but
Now they had to pay 'em.
it's gonna be a long-term,
That signal's in bad shape.
yeah.
And that would be good if they would take it.
So just for those that didn't hear what Rick said, all of the traffic lights on Main Street are the towns, correct,
With the
Rick?
exception
With the
of-
exception of,
66 in there.
right, and then 66 and Main Street east toward East Hampton are owned by the state of Connecticut. So and they do need repairs, we have to repair them. And Rick calls the streetlight repair person, and that person responds.
We have a contractor, we changed the bulbs, and that's when you'll see the bucket truck come out another night, that's one thing we use that for, and we save a fair amount of money by replacement. But we do have an outfit called Signal Service, they're very good, I've used them too. And, traffic signals, can get interesting, particularly at the two schools. When they go out, you've got children and stuff. At any of the intersections, and they respond very well, and they're reasonable. It's a specialized field, so do that.
Is this, and I don't know if we're gonna get the answer to that, is it, and this is the first I've heard of it, and I have seen you guys changing it now that you mention it. Is it normal for us to be maintaining the lights on a state road?
Well, a lot of things we do on a state road that aren't normal, but, I couldn't say it's normal, because all I can tell you is that since I've been here and before me, we have maintained those traffic signals. Or we've been responsible for their maintenance, and we've changed bulbs.
Maybe, Rick, we could retrieve the letter that we had sent and then received from the state, because Rick's office and mine requested that the state take over these streetlights, and after a period of time, the state did respond affirmatively.
Just that once.
Well, it includes, I think, Rick, the one in front of Brownstone and there's two there, right?
There's the-
Fairview
there's
Street.
Middlesex Avenue.
Right.
Yes.
Right,
you're-
because those are in the
It's
worst
all on one.
condition.
It's all on one control.
Right.
Yes.
So they would, you're saying they would assume responsibility for those?
But it's in the 2020s, I believe.
Yeah.
We're on the list.
And there was a large payment we had to make.
And there's a payment we have to
So
make too. But we'll get those letters.
We have to cross our fingers and hope that the signal doesn't blow out, because they are fairly expensive, right, Rick?
They're very expensive, and
Yes.
we've spent a fair amount in the recent years on that signal, so,
Yeah.
so yes, they are very expensive.
They're very expensive.
Okay, on page 61, we have.
Any other
vehicle
questions on that
maintenance.
page? Before we move on?
Yeah, I had one other.
Okay.
What's the storm drain cleaning from 2014-15 to now is about a, what's that?
Ask if you're going to
$7,500
answer,
increase?
if you could go to the podium, Rick, so that everybody can hear you.
I can simply say this, and I
Appreciate
think
it.
that that's a number, the proposed number, I don't think is, might not be sufficient for where we're at. Storm drain cleaning, such as many other services, has increased. We've put in some more basins, not a huge amount. But it's one of those, well, and then you have the DEP who's mandating, it didn't used to be that we had to clean them, and now that's a mandate, so you have to clean them. Not that we always have, just so you know, or most of them. We've added basins, and the cost is, we bid it out every year. As a matter of fact, it'll go out to bid on, I think Monday, we always bid it this time of year, and each year we find that the cost per basin, we bid it per basin. There's fewer doing it, and as a matter of fact, this year, depending on what happens, it might be significantly higher depending on who we use, so.
And
Well, I
we
believe back in 15, the contractor we used actually let it go out of business. He was there, he may have passed away.
We were fortunate, the fellow who has done it the previous 2 years held his, matter of fact, the last time he bid it was 2015. And, no,
You're right.
15, and we got the vendor to hold his bid last year, and he's a good vendor, and he's very reasonable. I don't know where it'll be this year, but we can only hope.
And we did pick up Courtney Lane, had quite a few, like that.
Yeah, it's probably
6, 8, 10, yeah, okay.
Anything else?
The street light, 10,000. Which street lights? Are we switching, is that LED? What-
Street signs or street?
Oh, sorry, I meant street signs, yeah, because we've been, on the street signs, we've been replacing them all. I knew we had to switch our street signs back. I thought we were gonna start to see this
It did.
It
drop.
did.
No, I know, but by 6,000. I didn't know, do we still have more to change out?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, working with Tom on the remainder, we used the municipal aid grant, is that the name of the grant we used to do some of, that's a grant that we've used for guide rail replacement in the previous years. We used it, I think, on overlay on the parking lots on Main Street, we used a big chunk this past year. I counted it out, the street signs, we got the remaining batch with the exception maybe of, those are the street name signs, with the exception probably of another dozen I have to order. We'll be installing the remainder of, which is probably a quarter of what we have over the next month or so. It's kind of good fill-in work, and when it's, as a matter of fact, we're doing it now because it's with the snow and all. The remainder of what I have to order a large share of is all the other directional signs, warning signs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Value of those probably, we don't have anything, we've used up we'll be using up our budget pretty much this budget year with the municipal aid grant and the operating budget monies this year. And we'll be in pretty good shape, I would say, in next year's budget. We got another $10,000 or $15,000, and then we'll be in good shape. You know,
Good.
these are all federally mandated sign changes, MUTCD and reflectivity and all that stuff. So we're making.
But even a normal change year, right, I mean, we usually do a 7 to 7,500.
Yeah,
$10,000.
yeah, we always put it in because vandalism, I mean, the new signs are easier than those big old concrete ones.
And signs are expensive. I see on the stop signs, are we now adding that red, and I think that's
Yeah,
helpful.
well, some of the signs, we still have got a number of stop signs to put up that have that reflectivity, and all the warning signs we haven't even started.
Okay,
We're doing well with that.
keep up the good work, thank you.
The vehicle maintenance agreement department, you'll see a decrease in that. There was one of our longtime employees left the town, unfortunately. He was a great employee and has been replaced, and the new replacement's doing very well, but it's at a lower salary. And pretty much the remainder of that budget pretty much remains the same other than that.
Any questions on vehicle maintenance?
Page 63 is what's our town engineer budget. That's a town engineer budget's a tricky budget. A lot of times when there's more activity, which is usually a positive thing, then in turn, there's a requirement for the town engineer. This year, we're doing a lot of dam inspection work, and then that will not be needed for next year. It'll be this year we're seeing it. So we're hoping to stay within that 38,500 range. As you can see, some years we're close and some years we go over, and based on that, the needs and the activity that comes into town kind of drives the use based on regulatory compliance.
Any questions on town engineer?
Why such a drastic drop on planning and zoning / wetland from 16,000 down to 7,500 or budgeted 8,000? Why the drastic? What are you anticipating not occurring this year that did occur last year?
Well, I mean, the budget is just not really, it's not going up on the budget per se. We budgeted 7,500 for last year. I think there was just a lot of reviews and activities that were going on in the planning and zoning side, so that caused that to be quite a bit higher. You know, like you say, you're just, in theory, just trying to keep the budget down.
Yep. What did we do in 15-16 at 16,000? That one seems like, did we do something special that year? Did we do a study? I'm just trying to see what that 1 year.
I mean, I think they got brought up again last year.
I think,
Rick?
I believe there were some, there was some legal cost also on 2 or 3 contentious things that required to be, they were engineering related and legally related, so I
Okay.
think that had something to do with it.
Thank you.
Sometimes zoning enforcement requires that the town engineer review plans and make recommendations. There may have been some zoning enforcement, as there have been and may continue to be this year, so.
Can I ask a question, and I know this relates to potential of Elm Crest moving forward. Now, I believe there was a fee schedule established. If
Right.
that should go, that
Right.
would cover those costs. If not, I can assure you that your engineering costs, should that move forward in design, will be a fair amount of money.
Oh, absolutely.
I think there were large fees, right, Susan?
Yes.
It-
We had given a copy of that estimate to the selectmen,
Mhm.
and as Tom had explained to me, when the Anthony Fonda site plan had been approved, those dollars are not necessarily placed within the operating budget, but rather in a special, would I use the word fund or account, Tom?
They get included in a special revenue fund that is for planning and zoning. And the activity gets, that is specific for engineering purposes is set aside in that fund and held, so that the revenue in goes and matches the expense out. And then the components that are supposed to be in the general fund, that are just straight general fund fees, go into the general fund. But the pieces that are supposed to be, yeah, this is going for the engineer, they go into the other fund. And then if they're not spent, they're deferred and tracked. And if the activity doesn't go on and and we don't incur the fee, at some point that would be refunded to the applicant. Otherwise, the fees would come in. If it was an applicant that didn't go through. Like, I think Ms. Fonda has fees that he put up that probably won't go through. And if the next person puts in their fee structure, it would be, and then it would, and if that does go forward and then the project gets approved, the monies will be spent on engineering.
Any other questions? We'll move on to the next page. Street lighting.
Street lighting here, this is just a hope and a prayer that energy costs don't go up more than 4. That's probably not a very good hope, but that's all we try not to go too much there. Every year, I know the board attempts to do a cut to street lighting, and it's always on the table, but it's when I go, it's hard to get accomplished. So we'll put in there at 3.92% and hope that it doesn't go up more than that.
With the agreement to switch to all LED lighting, wouldn't we be locking in at some point, or how, walk me through what they proposed and what's going on there?
Well, CLMP, we're doing the work through CLMP, so they actually build into the rates, the actual purchase. So there's different ways you can do it, you know, you could go out, you could buy them all and front load that money and then pay maintenance cost, and then you'd see a lower electricity cost, but you'd have maintenance, and now you own the top part. And if somebody hits it, then you gotta figure out how to, you know, get that all fixed and have an agreement to get that fixed. I believe the way that, you're doing it here on the ones where they did do it, it's just it's a factor that goes into the cost. So it actually, in theory, could increase your cost on your supply component with the equipment, but on the actual usage, it should go down because it should be more energy efficient. Payback.
Yeah, I was just I remember when I was on the Board of Ed, we did a lot of switch outs, and it seemed to be more of a maintain. You know, by switching to the LED would offset the cost of purchases through the.
Yeah, and that was done a little different way. This is
Okay.
more, this guy's actually telling you gotta pay for it too. So you're paying for that light.
Right, and it's a different boat, because they can dictate that, because.
Pretty much.
Right, okay.
And even if you don't get rid of it, you got the pole.
Right.
You know, the pole's still somebody's, and you gotta deal with that shenanigans if people hit it, so. Page 67 is the grounds maintenance department. And the grounds maintenance department is made up mostly of 3 individuals, and then there's supervisor. The supervisor's paid mostly from the Board of Ed, but the portion, small fee is paid by the town for that. There is a part-timer that does a lot of work for Carl and his crew. Those monies we've kept consistent. I think that he's only asked for $2,000 additional in ground supplies. And as we expand the parks, our parks and whatnot, and the costs of the supplies themselves continue to go up, it's kinda seems only natural to be at requesting that increase. So overall, it's about a 2.22% increase to the budget.
Any questions? Carl is here as well.
What's the waste service line item?
That's for any type of trash that we would, that they have. We go to the resource recovery facility, and the resource recovery charges.
Or it could also be demolition off the job or something like that, right?
Correct, yeah, that's,
Okay.
that's the bigger.
We have to pay for whatever we do.
The demo company, that's usually when it's the big stuff.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Good.
I got just one
Kathy?
question. On the gas and diesel, why did we go up 50% from 15 to 16? Those actual?
We're, you got, the actual was 16,000 and 15, 10,005 and 16 due to the, very strong, rates.
But then
The
16, you know, why
The
did we?
15's the budget for this year. I left that because at the time, like I said to you, I had no diesel contract, and I don't have any gasoline contract locked in. At this
Yeah,
point,
I
there is a
heard that.
diesel contract. There's a diesel contract locked in, there's no gasoline locked in.
When do you anticipate locking in the gasoline?
Kinda when the time is right, and usually they work with a vendor, and they give us the guidance on that when its time is right. So far, he hasn't come back yet with a time.
Thank you.
The diesel, you know, the bid came in, and it just was, the time was, you know, it hit where the time was right, and it was within like $1,000 of last year's for the global use of the whole town, so it was, you know, well within the time to call the number and say, all right, let's call it. So we did that for diesel and fuel oil, but, so it's good. I mean, I feel a little more comfortable with the diesel number. You know, obviously gasoline is just, you know, that's the tricky one right now.
Tom, under commodities, the small tools line.
Yeah, that's small tools. I mean, those are things that they, that they do acquire. I know that they, are very, adamant about only purchasing things when they do need it. So, you know, that's been a line item that's consistently in, that budget. I know that, last year, one of the things that we had tried to do was acquire, that big piece of equipment. So, we had purchased a $67,000 piece of equipment last year in this budget. And we had on a $3,000 budget line, so we were trying to save from other areas to help acquire that one piece of, equipment.
Okay.
And those are things like blowers, backpack blowers, walk behind machines, weed whackers, any of that type of equipment.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
In our page 69, we have the building maintenance contract, building maintenance, group. And, had some turnover there in staff, so there's some change there within the, payroll budget number for that. Service contracts, continue to go up. This year, we're, you know, it's all dependent on how the HVAC systems hold up and, any of the heating and the cooling systems really hold up. This year, I know we're having a little trouble with those components, and we're eating up a lot of the expense. We did that in 15, we had a decent year in 16. They continue, there's other contracts in there for fire components and fire, the various service contracts that we have throughout the town for various departments.
The furnace, that company wanting, replacing that to natural gas?
That is natural gas now.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions on building maintenance?
I already asked you this one in another meeting, the cell phones, and I think you, I don't wanna, that's all of the town cell phones under this line item, right?
Yeah, it's all sound except for, that's all, yeah, that's everybody. There's actually nobody that's in building maintenance that actually has a phone. But it's where it's always been, so.
No problem. Thank you.
Yep. The next line is snow removal. That we left the same. As you can see, based on the previous 2 years, it can go really bad, and it can go really good. This is leaving the sand salt method the same method, and overtime being done the way you know, overtime is.
And these numbers obviously don't reflect the last big storm, right?
These are 17 numbers.
Right.
These are 16 numbers in it. The 17 numbers are in your packet that you have.
Oh,
in front of you.
thank you.
But would
So
that
that's-
include the payroll from last week?
From when?
Last week? In these numbers here? No. Okay, that's what you're saying.
Okay, so in the general fund, the next page is page 99. And that is the library.
Janet Nochek and board members are here tonight, including our co-chair, men and women.
Do you have anything to say, Janet, or do you want to go over some stuff? Or?
Good evening.
Hello, Janet.
That time again. Goes fast these years, don't it? So, yeah, I just wanted to, I know you know that we've had some staff changes and that the budget, you see, is changed a bit, that we have more in the full-time, less in the part-time. we had one retirement just at the beginning of the fiscal year, and that was a long-time person at a top level. So we didn't hire at her rate, and we actually made a lower level position sort of for the 40 hours that she was doing. It's no longer a librarian 3, it's a librarian 2 now. So there was some savings there. And then the person that actually had kind of been promoted, had been promoted from a part-time position, that is actually vacant now. So we think we can get by with it basically vacant as long as we have something for substitutes that can work a lot of the nights and Saturdays that the former person did, because everyone has to work a night and Saturdays in rotation. So it would become a little difficult if we miss one more body. So we kind of have to have that in there. But it's still less than half of what the other person was doing. So we're in good shape there. And then we just recently had a resignation as well, which we hope to fill very soon, because that is our children's assistant, which is a very, very critical position, really. It's this person that we had for many years, probably know Lauren Coleman, was much beloved for wonderful programming, depth of programming, and quite a variety that she and Jen have. In the past couple of years, we had a wonderful time with them both there, working with each other and doing team programs have expanded, and more programs for the intermediate grades, which in the past were kind of neglected a lot of years just because it wasn't enough time to get the programs ready and planned and done. So we had a lot of great experience in there. So we hope to get someone else in there. We've posted it internally at this point, but I don't believe there's been any interest in it internally within the library. So we'll probably have to go out for that. So, but that will be again at a lower rate than the former person had been at. So that is good. I think the budget as it stands, we've got a little decrease on the bottom line from last year, partly because of these things, and Susan has given us some increases we needed in the mainly in the data processing areas. The state, as you know, is doing a lot of things differently this year, shall we say, and we have now to pay for our internet access that we're really getting for free from the Connecticut Education Network. It's still a reasonable amount, but it's $2,000, which now has to be counted on that we have that. So we have that, and also the state libraries had reductions, so we're not getting the little grants that we got. I mean, we had decent grants in the past, so we were getting about $6,000 a year from them that helped us do some of our buy some of the electronic database, things like that. So we asked for a little bit more there, and hopefully that will work out. We've got a lot of concerns about the state budget, as everyone does, that will affect the libraries at this point too. So that's most of the highlights. I don't know if you have any questions.
Questions?
No.
It's a good summary, Janet.
So,
Mitch, anything?
No, I'm set, thank you.
Thank you. Board members have any comments? Thank
Okay.
you for your work. Very much.
Thanks. Tom suggested I mention capital, which yeah, that's a good idea. We really, the library's getting older, and we've had a lot of good things infrastructurally done with the roof and all. We still are waiting on redoing the carpet before it breaks down. We've had pieces of it done. This room was redone, a few of the rooms, so that has gotten us by. But we're just hoping that things won't be forgotten, that we need some more repairs. We did ask for dollars to buy some more furnishings, because if you look, some of our furnishings in the adult area are falling down a bit. They're shabby, and some of the chairs are really very tight and getting very, they're tight as far as the size of them, and they're not too popular, as well as they're not in great shape, frankly.
And they're not comfortable.
Yeah, they're not comfortable. They're not. So we actually have had some dollars that we're working to spend right now this year, and we would love some for next year, but I know there's a lot of other things the town needs, so the Capital Commission, apparently there's nothing in there right now for these improvements. We have a book drop that's quite corroded in spots. I don't know if Public Works can fix it. We'll try and see what they can do. we'll get Rick out there. Oh, he's gone, oh, too late, okay, so. But those are some of the main things there, so just keep in mind is
Did you want to just say a
future.
couple sentences about the, I know that some members of the Clean Energy Task Force looked at the potential of a solar array on your
Mhm.
roof. Do you want to just brief us on that a little bit?
Yes, yeah, Kerry Darby and Andy Bauer from the Clean Energy Task Force came and talked with Susan and myself and Rick, and, you know, they had a great idea that we have a beautifully faced front, you know, to the freestone, where the roof actually is, it's light colored, it's there, it's big. It would be a wonderful place for a solar array. And there was a grant being offered by the EBSCO company that provides libraries, for the price of course, with a lot of electronic resources and things, and we use them for some things. But they had a grant offered to one library in the U.S. It's somewhat of a contest to this, obviously, but if you had a good thing put together, a good spot for it, you know, community is working towards good energy savings, which ours is. So they thought, well, we'll go for it. And we were looking into it, but it appears that there's a concern about maintenance and if snow should build up there, because we know we had a big snow build up there a few years back. If you remember, there were, you know, machines and people all over that roof. That kind of thing could just, you know, really be troublesome. So Andy looked into it and Kerry a little bit more, and they thought that they don't think with the current technology it can be done. I mean, there are ways that are being done, but it might be something that you'd end up having a problem a few years down the road if you know, if you really had a lot of snow or some other maintenance issue that, yeah. So right now they were thinking they'll look at other places in town. I'm still going to keep looking out for that though, because I think that would be really cool. I mean, if we could get it there, it's just such a good spot and so visible. You know, I just really believe in helping the particular industry. I think it's a good thing for the whole community and the country to have, you know, alternate sources of energy, whatever, you know, comes down the pike. It's always good. And I think just as things improve, maybe they'll have a better, you know, lightweight, movable, whatever, I don't know, kind of technology there. So we'll keep looking into it.
Thank you for your work.
Okay,
And
you're
thank you
welcome.
to your board and the Clean Energy Task Force.
They're a
Thank
good
you.
board. Yes. Good people.
Yes, excellent.
It doesn't have much of a pit, that's part of the problem. The roof is almost for the lack of a pit.
Thank you, Jan. Tom, which page?
We're gonna go move now into, page 114, 113. This is the sewer, budget. So this budget, as well as water, are often driven off of the expenditures and the need and our expected need of cost. And then the revenues are kind of backed into with that. So I think as we go through the budget process and through the process this year, you know, we should really consider some type of a rate increase in water and sewer again, to help mitigate the growing difference in the budget revenue versus the actual. And the expenses are what Rick and his crew, as well as what I've gone through with them, and our best estimate on what it is to run the sewer department with a reasonable capital allocation of $125,000, but not hitting the 5 million or so of immediate concerns on the tie and bond. So that's another attempt in another year, probably, where you'll have to do some type of bonding to try to mitigate and go through some of those costs. But in that report, they did show utilizing about $125,000, so that's what we try to do here for the water and sewer, both putting in $125 for capital, and then from that, things that are on the open list can be accomplished. We do have our payroll numbers are made up of the individuals that are actually there employed with their estimation. There's overtime figures in both areas for numerous either call-ins. Sewer itself often has weekly rounds that are done by a component on the weekends. So there's usually always some type of an overtime for some person in that group. Water and sewer, water as well as sewer also has numerous call-ins off of alarms for various levels of things that need to occur. The medical and dental insurance fluctuate based on the people that are there, or if their family or what their family usage is, and so that's just, it follows the group. Could be if you have a bunch of family members, it could be higher. If you have a bunch of single people, it could be lower. So that really is no influx there. Service contracts is a lot of it with the Matta Bassett and getting rid of the waste, and as well as the HVAC contracts are in there. There's some other contracts would be in there as well. That's showing right around that same number. As the plant continues to age, equipment repairs and rental goes up, as well as we were trying to implement around a $20,000 a year repair system to go out and clean the pipes. I think the first amount hit this year because we had numerous backups that were causing us to have insurance claim activity. So we have done some of that work this year. I believe that Rick has stated that there's probably how many more cycles there, Rick? 3 to 5? Yeah. About 3 to 5 more cycles, and then in theory the cycle is going to turn around and start over again. It's going to be one of those ones, in theory, if we do the right thing, we'll continue to be, this is a continuing, ongoing cleaning of the pipes that will hopefully help prevent any, roots and things growing into those pipes and causing backups and sewage into people's homes. Electricity always is a matter down there. We do our best to maintain it, but it seems like it's a growing beast. There is aged equipment in some of the areas. So I guess within that $5 million of projected increases would be various blowers and things of that would, in theory, if replaced, would save money on electricity, but then you have to forefront the actual purchase of the good. And we do have various sewer clean water notes. The principals are coming out to about $227,000 this year, and an interest of $14,000. Miscellaneous is a lot of the permitting work that gets accomplished down for that department. They keep increasing the fees on that and the work associated with it. So that's kind of what the miscellaneous number is for. It's for a lot of the permitting. And we talked about the transfers for the town. Similar scenario with water. A little bit better of a picture on their revenues in fiscal year 16, finishing a positive for that year. But capital still needs to be continued. This year we're having difficulties with water because of the drought. We had to purchase quite a bit more water than we would have liked to. We couldn't utilize the well as much. So some of the positives we saw we're losing in that coverage.
Can I just interject there? In terms of the water, Rick, and the level of the well, how are we doing as far as that is concerned?
Slightly better, but we're still well below normal. The state actually just enacted a new rule which is good, due to the drought throughout the state, where we now have to submit to them monthly well levels. We're not in a bad position as many of the systems are, because we we're a little better than we were, but.
And what about the sewer plant? We're still
Sewer plant,
not
again,
accepting?
It's a catch-22, when we're operating, our plant is designed for 1 million gallons a day. We're average day now at about 250,000. That's a complicated process, so we haven't accepted septic loads because, septic loads are very, how do I say, it? They're a high-intensity load. And we don't have the dilution factor of the water coming in with normal sewage coming in, so it upsets the plant when we get septic loads. I'm optimistic if we get some rains and we get some wet weather and one thing or another, we'll hopefully be able to at least accommodate the septic pumpers better than we have. We haven't been able to do much. It affects the plant. One load, when you've got low flows, can really wreak havoc on the plant. It'll affect the plant for weeks, and then you get a violation from the DEP, it's catch-22. It's weather-related to
Yeah.
some degree.
Thank you. And I know too, I just want to add that we, Rick, Tom and I are always looking at ways to improve our electricity usage and costs. Again, some of that's related to the size of the plant and the amount of electricity that we have. It's not always as favorable to invest the money if you don't have the return, but we are looking at that all the time as far as either solar or other mechanisms that are out there. And at this point, we're still searching. So if you have any information, let us know.
Tom, on line item 62002, page 115, the water and sewer fees, I'm assuming most of that is water? Or you correct me if I'm wrong. You're budgeting 19,500.
I gotta look into what that is, but I would assume most of it's water.
Okay, and then,
It is.
okay, and back to what you just said, Susan, things
Yes.
to look into. Could we put a mini, and I don't know if it's feasible, a mini, little power plant on the discharge, saying that we're pumping out to the river? Could we put a little mini guy on it and produce anything, or not even more? Because I know they have smaller system now for smaller dams that.
We met, actually, a few months ago. We've met with numerous energy consultants at the plant. We met as recent as, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago on a cell, that's a fuel cell. What I can say is this, is the plant is not old, not new. When we upgraded the entire plant in 2001, we took advantage of the controls, lighting, all those things which aren't totally outdated, but, so the electricity usage is based on numerous large pumps, many processes, many mechanisms. There's just a lot of pieces of equipment that use, I mean, we have 50 horsepower pumps, and we pump 24/7, I mean, it's just a lot, it's the nature of the beast,
That new pump
unfortunately.
that they put in on you, right?
Excuse me?
The new EPA requirement, the new requirement where you gotta have those front end piece, which is first.
Yeah, and the UV treatment, and I could go on and on, but it's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, we're not wasteful by any means with energy, we're not totally outdated on our processes, we have variable speed pumps, we have good controls, I wish I could tell you it's gonna get a lot better, it's probably not.
Thank you.
Tom, on the, jumping back to your water and sewer rates, do we have any kind of, you were, I think, suggesting that you wanted to either make up try to increase the amount allocated to the deficit, or did you say that we are, in fact, on a yearly basis, not getting enough revenue to cover?
Well, let's just for a second, take a look at 113. You look at numbers, account 00350. So last year had some semblance of a rate increase in it, and we did quite a bit better than we did the year before. You went 822, 426 in 15, you're 903, 373. Budgeted 1032, 244. What I'm saying is we're budgeting 1068, 594. The difference between 903 and that 1068 is about 18%. So that's what I'm saying. I think you got a little bit of a flaw. Now, hopefully, we don't spend all the money. But if we did, there is a definite, disconnect. And sewer did not make money last year, lost again. So the attempt to break even, it did much better than it had. It did see improvement, but it didn't get you to the overage. And then you try to increase capital again, as well as just normal increases in fees that go on versus disposal, as well as the workers, and medical and pension costs and things of that nature. I just think that you would want to look at that. You don't want to get that gap to keep growing between reality and what you're budgeting. That's not where you want to be. You want to be, you want to be closer coming in to what you're saying there. So, like we say, generally the revenue's based upon the expenses driving it. So in that instance, there's somewhere, you got to go somewhere closer, I would say, to getting between 0 and 18%. So you want to go somewhere better, and similarly, when you flip the page to water, you go to 0358, you got 814, 841 and 15, 838 and 719. We did see a bunch of improvements in water meter charges, which we anticipated. But again, from that to what you're budgeting 1011. There's it's about a 20% swing in that number. When you're looking at your changes in the budget, you're looking at 4%. It's just you're not achieving the budgeted number. Now you could see improvement on this number as well this year after all is said and done, because it'll be hopefully a full year with all your rate increase. But I can't imagine you're going to see a 20% swing. I won't see that. And the dilemma is that you got on the water, MDC goes up 4%. I mean, so you're buying it, and if you don't raise your rate, they're already gone up 4% on you. So your base has gone up just on that, and then you got wage increases, you got property increase, you have other increases in your numbers. So it's one of those ones where if you're buying from a guy, you gotta stay ahead of him. So whether it be you're going up 5% a year, whether you're going up 7.5% a year, you gotta look at that and to get those numbers where they start coming in, breaking, exceeding where we were. Again, like water last year was better. We still have a big global deficit, but I'm just concerned about if the reality of the expense is true, which hopefully, the guys do a nice job trying not to spend that money. But if the expense does hit out, where you do spend your whole allotment, you're off on that revenue side by quite a bit.
You're all set, Fred?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tom.
Tom, where's the number for, the revenue that we get from the general side from the fire hydrants?
It's right, it's on the bottom of the page, it's a $50,000 transfer.
Which page is?
It's a 116-00501.
Which page?
116.
Yep.
And you go up to the interfund transfer, $50,000. It's number 00501. It's near the bottom of the page.
And that is just for hydrants? Do you know how many hydrants we have? I don't expect you to know that, but.
200. 235, I think, thereabouts.
50 bucks.
what's that rough numbers, 225 a hydrant, give or take? Something like that. You know, that could be one of the places we could look at comparing hydrant fees from the general fund. Maybe the rest of the town should be putting in, say, 100, not the 50.
Well, we looked at that benefit, correct me where I remember. We had done that analysis when we looked at various fees and rates, whatever, and tried to fairly apportion benefit to someone that's not on the water system out in the country that doesn't have a hydrant near them. Along with, so we tried to, the number, I don't recall it off the top of my head, that we apportioned, or we budgeted that comes from general taxation. I mean, you know, it's a, you know, so some people probably don't get any benefit, and some people get a lot of benefit.
That number was discussed in detail with the board at the time, and it was kind of deemed to be a reasonable, number.
The water the fire department uses, is that, where does that show up?
Well, what we quarterly do an analysis of non-revenue water, unallocated water, whatever. We actually speak with the fire department and ask them when they have a big fire. We get a number from them that generally turns out to be non-revenue water. It's borne by the general taxpayer as for the water used. It's not a big number. They used to drill heavily. In other words, they used water on Tuesday nights, and we always kept track of that. In the grand scheme of things, the cost of the water used for fire related services is very minimal.
Thank you.
Very minimal.
Thank you.
All right, is that, if for now on water and sewer, and we can go on for hours, I'm sure, on water and sewer, but kind of get you to the point of where we are. Page 122, we'll go to County Road. County Road is a grant we get. The governor is expecting that to remain pretty consistent at $239,766, and that gets utilized for improving roads. So that's that's a positive in this budget. Page 127 is our resource recovery facility. And pretty much this money's come in based on various types of activities. We do sale of metal, and we have facility use permits and garbage bags, and we do bulky waste and single stream, and then we have the contribution from the town. The one swing there you'll see, hopefully that we'll have a sale of metal. In 16 there was a transition with the metal carrier, and there was a question on the billing to us. We did catch this in 17 and have been made whole on all the billings that were there, so that we're hoping that would be more closely represent that 17 or so number. And that's why we feel that we could leave the 18,000 in for metal, and not revert it down to the 4. So that was, that billing issue has been remedied, and the person is paying on a more timely basis and being tracked by the Public Works Department as it comes in. The resource recovery facility has 2 men. At one point it had 2.5 men. Now it has 2. One of them is new. That's why you'll see a little bit of dip in the salaries. One of the other gentlemen went out to highway. He was hired a couple years ago. There's overtime that's for the people that work there, as well as the highway crew that has to come in and work when there is overtime. On the weekends, because they're open on Saturday, if the on-staff takes time off, there needs to be coverage. Service contracts is a lot to do with the grinding, so that's what that number is. Bags and stickers are, we require bags, that's how you throw the goods out. Stickers are the permits that go in your car. Have those every year. And then there's disposal fees for MSW and bulky waste. And I believe sometime in November of 17, our current agreement with Single Stream expires with the current vendor, so that'll be something that probably Rick and Susan and myself will work on in trying to update that agreement or switch vendors as needed. So with some of the changes in payroll, we're down about 2.28%. The next budget is budget 130, which is a building maintenance budget. This is where we try to make as many improvements that are not necessarily for capital, and the things that come up as dire needs and replacements and issues during the year. So that is pretty much about the same funds as it had been in the past. As Philip had mentioned, the Board of Ed is, to transfer money into this fund. They were able to make some good improvements to brownstone bathrooms, and a little bit of asbestos improvements to, I think it was Gildersleeve.
Tom, on page 128,
Yeah.
the landfill.
Yep.
The water and sewer.
So there's no water out there, so
Right.
we pay for the spigot, for the little bottle service for them.
Oh, okay, so that's not the septic and well? What's the 900 encompass, what you just said?
Yeah, it's more or less like Nestle or whatever for the water.
Okay, thank you. You know your stuff.
Try.
Piece of stuff.
Well, that's it, Susan, for tonight.
Okay. Do you anticipate the need to have another meeting tomorrow night, or do you anticipate being able to cover we finished what we needed to do tonight, so.
Yeah, I think we should go until next Tuesday when all the other people are scheduled to come in and.
Do you wanna just highlight for the board what we anticipate discussing next Tuesday, Tom?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll go back to the front, and a lot of those budgets are some things that I oversee or maintain. You have tax and tax assessor, finance. Then you'll have a bunch of land use budgets. So that's the Ashley and Mary Dickerson and Lincoln White and Ms. Tripp is all part of that group. And there's a good amount of those budgets. ELC, some benefits and fringes and that kind of stuff. And then we will hit up the youth service budget. We will go over Park and Rec. And I believe we will also then hit capital. And most of the capital, as you've seen, has been the lease. There was very little of other capital. Your consideration if you want to try to add back some more. I'm sure you'll make people happy. I did give the list.
Handed out the report from
that,
Long Range.
Yeah, Long Range put out. That did get to us sometime in March, so we were already out with the first draft. So we did, though, I did speak with Michael Aguilotti when we were putting together the lease plan and got the input from their board, as well as, going off of the list of items that were, estimated within the first 2 to 3 years of being purchased. And then it was something that we were able to lease, because there's only certain things you can lease and certain things you can't. And then hopefully trying to fit in everything that was something that would really benefit the town for a good long time. And we came up with a 6-year lease on that information. 1 year longer than we normally do, but that was an intent to hopefully not have too much of an impact on the mill rate at the time. All right.
Good. So we will not meet tomorrow night. We will meet next Tuesday.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Kitch, seconded by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
It's just about 8:45. Thank you.